I entered politics, one of my biggest idols, Hans-Dietrich Genscher, defined as one of the cornerstones of the European Union the respect of the right and the sovereignty, especially of the small members of the European Union. The Eurogroup did not respect this small member state, Cyprus, and its sovereignty, not the economy and not the society of Cyprus. The Eurogroup should stop to put in danger this fundamental value of the European Union, respecting the sovereignty of the small. And that is why we should respect Cyprus in order to safeguard the European Union. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Gomez.
Mrs. Gomez.
Cyprus, the Eurogroup split the euro. Euro deposits there are worth less than 60% of similar amounts deposited in Germany. Don't tell us that all was done to fight tax evasion. Solution 1 imploded the European deposit guarantee and fell on small depositors to actually allow the money laundering business to go on. And Solution 2, when it came, had given enough time to most criminals to organize capital flight. Don't tell us that all now is being done to accelerate the banking union. Why don't you, Commissioner, denounce the German government, who is actively slowing it down to suit its own electoral calendar? Commissioner Rehn, Commission, assume your responsibility. Stop hiding behind the Troika. If you want to move against tax evasion and impose fiscal responsibility, why didn't you lift a finger to stop capital flight from my country, Portugal, instead of letting the Troika bless a tax amnesty for tax evaders and other criminals under the
Frau Kollegin.
To our colleague Mrs. Theocharous for 2 minutes. Thank you, Madam Chairman, Minister, Commissioner. The financial situation in Cyprus is tragic indeed, and the Cypriot society is very unhappy with the European Union because the community solidarity finally was not implemented. However, Cyprus is looking towards the European Parliament, and that's why we should hope what is rule of law and what are the principles and values on which the European Union is based. Colleagues, the democracy of Cyprus has some inherent problems from the time it was created, and these were worsened with the Turkish invasion of 1974. I would like to recall that in 1974 Cyprus lost 40% of its land, of its territory, 55% of its coastline, and 90% of its tourism basis. It's this very big valley, and 40% of its populations became refugees, and they live in various camps, refugee camps. You haven't seen the best service and the best investment, Mr. Cohn-Bendit, that Turkey can give to Cyprus is to leave. Turkey should leave. So don't ask us to exchange the Troika, the occupation of the Troika, with the occupation of Turkey, unless you are trying to push the adhesion of Turkey. That's why you should allow Turkey to invest in your big economies. We know what Turkey is, and we do not want Turkey to save us. Colleagues, after the invasion, the Cypriot economy grew based on 2 pillars, tourism and the financial sector. We do not have a heavy industry. We do not have land to develop agriculture. The tourism, because being neighboring with various zones in war, was hit many times during the 25 years. And many times there was a note announced saying that Cyprus was dangerous because it was near the Middle East where there was conflict. Today, with the Eurogroup decisions, our financial sector also received a fatal blow. Many mistakes were made, okay, and maybe we didn't see some things in order to avoid the crisis, and the reforms that were necessary were not made. On the other case, the recipe implemented here, the shock therapy implemented, doesn't have sure result. It's as if we are guinea pigs, and the behavior of the Troika vis-à-vis the Cypriot population is unacceptable. Mr. Commissioner, Mr. Rehn, do you know that the European Union has made serious mistakes in handling the problem of Cyprus? Mr. Draghi gave liquidity 10 billion to the bank, like Key Bank, without controls, an amount that should be recovered by the bank. It shouldn't be given to be paid by the depositors. The market does not work. The citizens are not paid. The healthy businesses are closing. And the trust towards the financial system of Cyprus is being lost. As also many jobs, thousands of jobs as lost. Please, could you round up? Thank you very much. Mrs. Ferreira for one.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Giannakou.
Chairman, the situation in the European Union is known now, in the Council, and the Parliament, and the Commission. The solution selected for Cyprus was an experiment. This experiment created doubts in depositors in the whole of Europe. They had doubts whether their savings were safe. They have misgivings. They're worrying. They suspect that if this happened in another country, a larger country or another country, this solution would not have been chosen. The solution was the wrong solution and destructive. Of course, it was accepted by need by the leadership of Cyprus. Substantially, however, you punished a new leadership. The leadership had just been elected, and you undermined its future. And this should become a lesson. Either we can face the crisis altogether, because the problem is a spherical problem, because we have a global competition, either we cannot. Either we implement our decisions, or we do not. And we change our decision. We have to choose. Thank you.
Madame
President, ladies and gentlemen, the crisis in Cyprus has revealed the real face of technocratic Europe. The Commission, the ECB, the Eurogroup, within a matter of days reached an agreement, and savers were penalized. They installed control on currencies for a sovereign state without even asking for their opinion. Mr. Draghi closed down the international banking transfer system between Cyprus and the rest of the world. This is an unprecedented move in Europe, because what we're really talking about here is killing off a sovereign state in economic terms, and from an international legal point of view it is an act of war. In order to keep Cyprus within the Eurozone, an unelected authority violated all European treaties, going against free trade, free movement, and it did so without any scruples whatsoever. What about the situation in Italy? What do we plan to do here? Put an end to democracy? In a way, what's happened here is an illustration of the absurdity of the European project. We're negating states and we're removing freedoms. Technocratic Europe is an act of tyranny, and it is also a system that will lead to the crushing of the peoples of Europe. And it is time for us to stop this. We now need a new spring, a spring for European peoples. We don't want a European Soviet Union.
Mr. President, Cyprus applied to the European Stability Mechanism asking assistance because of the impairment of the Greek debt that cost Cyprus 4.5 billion or 25% of its GDP. Instead of solidarity, Eurogroup punished Cyprus by destroying overnight its economic model. It imposed an unfair haircut, thus destroying prosperity and aspirations of Cypriots, spreading mistrust all over Europe. Eurogroup blackmailed Cyprus for either a bankruptcy or haircut. It gave no time for reforms to the new government. It forced another southern European country into Troika's arms and into a vicious circle of austerity, recession and unemployment. Whilst the European Parliament is excluded, Troika, with no democratic legitimacy, is called to rescue Cyprus by destroying its economy in order to save it. This is ironic. I strongly protest the unjust allegations against Cyprus and urge Eurogroup, the Commission and ECB to revoke their wrong decisions, to help Cyprus restart its economy with development projects for growth and jobs, to give adequate funding, stop killing hopes and stop experimenting with our lives.
Yes, thank you. Competition is one of the core elements of the European Monetary Union.
Mr. Farage has the floor.
Years ago, Mrs Thatcher recognised the truth behind the European project. She saw that it was about taking away democracy from nation states and handing that power to largely unaccountable people. Knowing as she did that the euro would not work, she saw that this was a very dangerous design. Now, we in UKIP take that same view, and I've tried over the years in this Parliament to predict what the next moves would be as the euro disaster unfolded. But not even me in my most pessimistic of speeches would have imagined, Mr Rehn, that you and the others in the Troika would resort to the level of common criminals and steal money from people's bank accounts in order to keep propped up this total failure that is the euro. You even tried to take money away from the small investors in direct breach of the promise you made back in 2008. Well, the precedent has been set. And if we look at countries like Spain, where business bankruptcies are up 45% year on year, we can see what your plan is to deal with the other bailouts as they come. I must say, the message this sends out to investors is very loud and clear. Get your money out of the Eurozone before they come for you. What you have done in Cyprus is you have actually sounded the death knell of the euro. Nobody in the international community will have confidence in leaving their money there. And how ironic to see the Russian Prime Minister, Dmitry Medvedev, compare your actions and say, I can only compare it to some of the decisions taken by the Soviet authorities. And then we have a new German proposal that says that actually what we ought to do is confiscate some of the value of people's properties in the southern Mediterranean Eurozone states. This European Union is the new communism. It is power without limits. It is creating a tide of human misery, and the sooner it is swept away, the better.
We can't either stand by and watch tax evasion.
Madame Toia.
Grazie, Presidente.
Thank you. The damage caused to the credibility and trust of Europe by the disastrous management of the Cypriot crisis was going to last for a long time. We are going to stir up the anti-European organisations, and indeed many, even the European institutions like the Commission and Council, have not done what was needed. They made things worse. So what we don't see as any real policies, any real proposals for change. I'd like to mention two. One mentioned by Mr. Svoboda, the leader of my group. We need more democracy, we need more legitimacy. Especially the Troika. It's an embarrassing sort of organisation. One representative of a European institution, the Commission, that Parliament can speak to, but the other two are members, indeed employees, of international financial organisations with no resources of their own. That's completely unacceptable. So we are getting into...
Herzlichen Dank.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much for your comment.
Our colleague Mr. Hadjigeorgiou on behalf of GUE. Dear colleagues, first of all, I would like to thank the speakers who supported Cyprus. Most of them supported Cyprus. I would like to say that according to my view, we are playing in a play. The representatives of the Parliament, especially the members of the EPP, support us, but when they're in government, they do the opposite. Mr. Daul said here yesterday that we should neutralize the debt in Europe. But what do the representatives of the EPP do in their governments when they took the decisions in the Eurogroup to do a haircut to Cypriot deposits? What they did was exactly the opposite. Here, we shouldn't pretend we support Cyprus and then when in government to do the opposite. And I think that the representatives of the Commission, with all due respect, they're also playing a role. They are not listening to what the representatives of the citizens say in the Parliament. What they're doing is they're waiting for time to pass to say some prepared answers and to go to their offices and decide something different, different from what the representatives of the citizens say. European citizens have seen have seen a big haircut in the European in their deposits, and at the same time we had a similar haircut of democracy in Europe. And Cyprus, as soon as Cyprus stands on its 2 feet, it will examine the possibility to say the big goodbye, not counting the consequences, because this will express dignity. Because when Cyprus was going through difficult times, there was no solidarity. Solidarity was the solidarity of the lion in the forest, solidarity towards smaller creatures of the forest. Would the Eurogroup do that vis-à-vis a bigger state? Why didn't it do it for Greece? Greece was also a small state. Can it do the same for Italy? Can it do the same for Spain? Can it do the same for France, for Germany? Never, never. They did it because Cyprus is a small country. This solidarity is the one that we know. For the European Central Bank and its supervision, the famous supervision, where was that supervision when the Bank Laiki was expanded and went to Greece, either giving loans or credits? Where was that supervision? It left this expansion to happen, and it not examined a haircut of deposits in Greece. I'm not for a haircut, but because in that case it created a systemic risk. That proves that it was done exactly because Cyprus was considered a small country. I'm ending my speech. Until the end of 2011, we had a public debt, compared to its GDP, below the average of the Eurozone. 77% Cyprus, 88% the Eurozone. And this is a proof that the Cypriot economy was following a correct course. Just a bunch of bankers created the problems and the lack of supervision from the central bank. Thank you. Our colleague. So I would like to ask Mr. Hannes Swoboda to take the floor for the Socialists.
President. Commission Vice President, you said mistakes have been made. Well, grave mistakes have been made. Mistakes which should never have been made. And I don't know about your personal role. There are many rumors, but this also shows the intransparency, the lack of transparency. But you should never have agreed to the attack on the deposits below the €100,000 limit. This is not acceptable. It is destroyed also confidence and trust in the promises of the European Union. And therefore I think we should change the whole structure of our policies and of the methods. As I said, Commission Vice President, yesterday, we may not like and we don't very often not agree with your policies, but you are democratically elected. You are responsible to this Parliament. The Troika is not. Stop the Troika. We don't need the Troika. That is not necessary. Do you know, Commission Vice President, the behavior of the Troika, the rude behavior of the Troika? Do you know how they treated the president, the elected president of Cyprus? Ask them and ask the Cypriot representatives. And the rude behavior to the elected representatives and to the citizens of Cyprus and other countries is not acceptable. Let's stop the Troika. You and your colleagues are responsible. You are democratically legitimized. Yes, they are. And we want to speak with you about that. We don't need longer the IMF. Madame Lagarde says the one thing, the IMF representatives do anything else. You have to coordinate, of course, with the ECB, but we have to change. We also have to change our attitude in the Parliament. We should create a subgroup or subcommittee or whatever institutional framework we give it for treating the euro case, because we need a real dialogue between the Commission, the Council and the Eurogroup, also with the Parliament, and we have to be ready for that dialogue. Thirdly, also the Council, I must really say, some members of the Council like Mr. Schäuble, makes comments, these are comments of a neo-colonial behavior from above to the citizen. This is not acceptable. And Mr. Schäuble should rather look that we get a real banking union. Mr. Schäuble should look that we get the single resolution mechanism. Already he makes difficulties. Already he says, well, we have to change perhaps the constitution. And already it is clear that there is no willingness, at least before the election, maybe after the election. But this is not acceptable. We need an efficient and viable banking union. And the last point, Cyprus has potentialities. Cyprus has good people, has people who want to go for innovation, who want to go for the diversification of the economy. And they will have income from gas and oil. Give them the time, give them the possibility to develop alternative economy. Yes, they need reducing the banking sector, they need diversification, but we are here to help them. We are here to help the Cypriot people and not to dominate them. Thank you very much.